Hi, my name is Lee, and in this video I'm going to try to present some interesting statistical coincidences in the Hebrew Bible that have to do with the covenants. I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible because I know everybody's very busy. So let's begin. Here we have the word in Hebrew for covenant. This is the Hebrew word for covenant. And in gematria, which just means that all of these Hebrew letters have number values attached to them, if you combine all the letters, the value of the word is 612. So covenant has a value 612. In this program, we'll find how many times and where any word exists. So we see the total matches, and in red it highlights where you would find them. So it exists 135 times in the entire Hebrew Bible. But this program also finds number values. So we see here 612. It will find every instance of 612 as one word or a combination of words that run together or as an entire verse. So this is covenant. It has the value 612. And here we have Mount Sinai in Hebrew, and it has the value 335, and it exists 7 times in the entire Tanakh, just as it is. And there you see it. So let's look for how many times 335, the value of Mount Sinai, exists in the entire text. So we'll go over here. 335 exists 612 times, which we saw earlier is the value of the word covenant. And here you see all the instances of 335 highlighted in red. So let's look at that again. The value of the word covenant, 612. 612 is the amount of times that the value of Mount Sinai shows up in the entire text. Of course, the covenant, the famous covenant, was established at Mount Sinai. So let's look at some verses here. This is in 1 Chronicles 16, verses 16 and 17 will be our focus. I'll read 15. Remember his covenant forever, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations, the covenant which he had made with Abraham and his oath to Isaac, and he set it up for Jacob as a statute, to Isreal as an everlasting covenant. Okay, so I took verse 16, and there you see it, and it has the value 2,798. Now let's see how many times that value shows up. 365 times. So 2798 shows up in the entire Bible 365 times. And this is a verse about the covenant. What's interesting to me about that is 365 is the number of negative commandments of the 613. So let's look at this verse again as numbers. We saw that this sum exists 365 times in the entire Hebrew Bible. Here's the verse again. Let's look at it as numbers. And there we see as the name Abraham 248. So 365 and 248 are encoded into this verse about the covenant of 613 commandments. So we see here positive commandments and negative commandments. The negative are 365. The positive are 248. Neat coincidence. So let's go to the next verse. He set it up for Jacob as a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant. And here it is, 16, 17. And interesting, this verse is a true twin. So there are many verses in the Bible that are the same in content, but usually there's one slight difference between them. This one is a true twin in it's totally identical. So it has the value 1824. Let's see how many times 1824 shows up in the text. 613 times. So back-to-back verses about the covenant have 613 encoded into them in a way which you could never possibly know without a computer. So again, 365 and 248, and then here 613. Let's go to the Noahide Code now, because that phrase, everlasting covenant, is first used with Noah when God establishes his covenant. But I'm just going to show something interesting here in Genesis 4, verses 23 and 24. This is Lamech talking to his wives. And it says in 24, if Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then for Lamech it should be 77-fold. Now, I'm not going to say, I think there are some clues that maybe this is a type of prophecy referring to the future establishment of the Noahide Code, which hasn't happened yet by Genesis 4, but will be established in 6 and 9 after the flood. So let me just present some evidence for this. So we have sevenfold and 77-fold. Cain, Lamech, and Noah's code. So here's where the first time we hear about this covenant. This is in chapter 6, verse 18. And I will set up my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. I took the Hebrew for this verse, punched it in 4,947. Let's see how many times that exists in the text. 90 times. Interestingly, 90 is the value of Lamech. So I'll punch it in here really quick. And there you see, 90. Okay. So let's go to chapter 9 now, where the covenant is actually established. And we see here verse 12, and God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I am placing between me and between you and between every living soul that is with you for everlasting generations. So I take the Hebrew for this verse. And there it is, 912, 5,360. Let's see how many times that value shows up in the text. 58. Total matches, 58. That's interesting to me because 58 is the value of Noah. The name Noah. See, there you see it, 58. Okay, so far we have Lamech and Noah in verses about the covenant, encoded in a way that you could never know without a computer. So let's continue to the very next verse, 9:13. My rainbow I have placed in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between myself and the earth. And here it is, 9:13. 4,154. Let's see how many times that shows up. 160. 160 is interesting because that is the value of the word or the name Cain. And there's Cain, 160. So we've got Lamech, Noah, Cain, all referring back to that verse in the beginning. This verse here. If Cain shall be avenged 70 or sevenfold, then for Lamech it should be 77-fold. And I have heard it said that the Noahide Code, which clearly has 7 laws, it breaks down into 77 laws. So there we see Cain. So let's do one more verse, And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will see it, to remember the everlasting covenant between God and between every living creature among all flesh which is on the earth. And here it is, 916, 5,220. Let's see how many times that shows up. 77. Interesting. So the Hebrew scriptures are full of these types of statistical coincidences in the data. If this is interesting to you, please feel free to get a hold of me. Thank you very much.